the merge, for those who don't know, it's a process that actually started back in 2020, in December 2020, when the Beacon chain was created. So the Beacon chain is the parallel shadow chain where Ethereum has been running on a proof of stake system, while the majority of the Ethereum network, of course, is still running on the proof of work system. And the merge will mark the moment where the two chain, the main chain and the Beacon chain, will merge with each other.
The Ethereum merge, I don't think it's an overstatement to say it's one of the most important and impressive engineering feats in the whole history of the blockchain movement, from the founding of Bitcoin, the founding of Ethereum, and I would say the Ethereum merge is up next. And Ethereum started like Bitcoin as a proof of work network with miners mining blocks and securing the blockchain that way. But unlike Bitcoin, from basically very, very early in the Ethereum roadmap, Ethereum had it in its goals to transition to fully proof of stake. And there's a lot of reasons for it. The main ones are proof of stake makes Ethereum a more economically sustainable blockchain, and we can go into detail on the why. It makes it a more secure blockchain. It's a higher cost to attack Ethereum under proof of stake. We can go into that detail as well. And it makes Ethereum a more sustainable blockchain, even from like an environmental standpoint, because instead of having to have a hardware miner footprint, the hardwares are replaced by validators that use proof of stake, and a validator can be run by anyone with a laptop computer or any sort of computer anywhere. So just from an economic standpoint, running Ethereum as a proof of stake blockchain requires less issuance to validators than proof of work would require to miners. This is really, really important because it pays less to secure the blockchain. It means it requires less inflation. Ethereum as a monetary asset, its value goes up. And if Ethereum's monetary value goes up, then in theory, the security value of the entire Ethereum, the market cap of Ethereum will go up. And the higher the market cap of the base layer, the harder it is to attack the chain, the more it costs to attack the chain. Again, this very, very positive feedback loop of under proof of stake, issuance goes down, which means cost to attack the chain will go up, and the whole ecosystem works without the need for constant block subsidies. That's really important. That's something that proof of work chains like Bitcoin don't have. Bitcoin will have a block subsidy basically in perpetuity until 2140. So Ethereum, by doing the merge, is going to see the effect of 3 equivalent Bitcoin halvings at the same time. This is just hard. It's hard to see how this will not create a structural change in Ethereum. Instead of having issuance, 4.3% inflation, that goes to effectively 0, with a 90% reduction in issuance. That means effectively 90% less Ethereum issuance that can be sold on an everyday basis. It's hard to see economically how, with a lot less selling pressure, we won't see a reflection of Ethereum's price to the upside. We don't know when that'll happen. Usually Bitcoin halvings, when they happen, it takes 6 months or something for the effect of the lower inflation to kick in. Ethereum is doing 3 at once effectively, and I think we'll see the effect on day 1. Sell pressure goes to almost 0. So in short, I'm optimistic on price. I think it's a supply shock that we've never seen before.
And so many have compared this process to changing the wheel of a car while the car is moving. So why is it taking so long, and what are the main difficulties of this whole process?
No, that's an absolutely valid question. And again, Ethereum's been talking about proof of stake since very shortly after its genesis. And now, almost 8 years later, you would say in 2022, we're getting to the actual merge. The analogy you say about the car is valid. I would say it's even more difficult. It's like changing the engine of an airplane while the airplane's mid-flight. And that right there encompasses why it has so much technical difficulty. The majority of DeFi runs on Ethereum, which means a tremendous amount. It's been over $100 billion of value secured on Ethereum. Plus, the NFT world runs on Ethereum. Plus, Ethereum is setting itself as the digital property rights layer, where you can basically have your property that's embedded into the blockchain. That can't go down. There can't be issues with this. And when the actual transition happens from the proof of work to proof of stake blockchain, it needs to go through, so all the value secured exists, and so confidence remains in the Ethereum blockchain. We can't have downtime. We can't have the blockchain be shut down, and that's a very, very big part of Ethereum ethos. So better safe than sorry in this sense. It's better to test over and over and over. And the last thing I'll say on this is Ethereum has this property called client diversity, which sets it apart from other blockchains. There's a vast amount of execution layer clients. There's a vast amount of consensus layer clients. That's good for decentralization. That's good for separation of power. But what it creates is human syncing issues where all the clients have to all sync with each other and all be ready. And that's something that brings in another complexity that we've had to test over and over. Ethereum needs to continue educating and showing what its value is versus where the scaling is actually going to be. And the short answer is Ethereum has identified as blockchains have evolved that there's effectively a scalability trilemma. And it means that blockchains can either be very decentralized, very secure, or very scalable and fast. And between those three, blockchains have to pick two. It's basically architecturally impossible to do all three correctly. Ethereum has chosen that, you know what, let's actually have separation of powers and separation of duties, and let's have Ethereum be a settlement and security layer that's very, very secure, incredibly neutral, and can't be tampered with by third central parties. And let's make it decentralized by having hundreds of thousands of validator nodes, and by making it very, very easy to run a node. Hardware requirements are very, I can run a node, I can run a validator node. That's something that other L1s can't do. But that comes at the cost of not being able to scale at the base layer. And you know what? That's actually okay, because Ethereum has chosen what they've called a roll-up roadmap, where it's outsourced the execution, which is the scalability, to a series of roll-ups that are known as layer 2. And the funny part is roll-ups are already live. Scaling's already here. There's already environments to have very, very low fees, very, very fast execution on Ethereum. Scaling's here. Apps exist on scaling. What needs to now change is that users need to learn that all of their activities should be on layer 2. And then the layer 2s ultimately will use Ethereum as a base layer 1 for settlement and security and decentralization. The whole point of the Ethereum economy is it creates use cases and creates a velocity of money. I mean, Ethereum really is the money that's used across the entire Ethereum ecosystem to buy NFTs, it's collateral in DeFi, to pay for gas, and a bunch of use cases that we probably haven't even invented yet. The point is to keep recycling money. So there will be validators selling, and that will create more redistribution into the ecosystem. Validator rewards are taxable, so that'll already create, if you assume the 50% tax rate, that'll already create a 50% sell pressure from validators over the long run to pay taxes. So there are still decentralizing methods. Will it be everything sold from validators versus miners need to sell everything? Not as much. But let's turn to the flip side too. Let's turn to the mining front. Again, I think Bitcoin's a fantastic technology. I think Ethereum and Bitcoin will be very complementary. And people that want proof of work exposure will have Bitcoin. People that want exposure to digital economy will have Ethereum. But on the Bitcoin side, mining is also fairly centralized. Mining operates with scale. So it scales. The better operate, the larger players or the larger mining pools are going to have better economics and are going to scale their operations better. Especially nowadays with power prices going to the roof, it's harder for smaller individual miners to set up their own operations. So you could actually argue the same phenomenon could happen with large miners that can happen with validators, because the large miners could also accumulate Bitcoin and hold on to it as an investment. So this is just a long-winded way of saying there are trade-offs to both. Bitcoin and Ethereum have very different use cases. People that want an immutable source of money that doesn't have velocity but has the proof of work, the proven there's 13 years of proof of work backing it, will pick Bitcoin and keep some money in there, and it'll be effectively digital gold. But the adoption space for Ethereum is much larger for a lot of reasons. One, Ethereum has a staking yield, so institutions that want yield can express that view with Ethereum. They can stake their Ethereum, they can earn validator rewards, and be part of a digital economy. Also, as a store of value, you want the monetary policy to be as strong as possible. after the merge, Ethereum will have lower inflation than Bitcoin. Especially with fee burns, Ethereum will be deflationary, while Bitcoin will always be inflationary, although every halving that inflation rate does go down. So in terms of market cap, I think Ethereum does have, just from an economic perspective and because of the effect of the supply shock, a chance to flip Bitcoin based on the fact that Ethereum can have an economy running on top of it. It's programming. The design space to program on top of the Ethereum blockchain is basically infinite, and the base layer has lower issuance. I think proof of stake will end up being a more sustainable consensus mechanism and proof of work over the long run. And there's more velocity to it. I think the one part that is not too debatable is Bitcoin doesn't really move. Bitcoin has a culture of people hodling, and that's totally okay. I mean, gold doesn't really move either. But today, do we see gold being used as money, or do we see other more portable forms of money being used as mediums of exchanges? And I would argue Ethereum's going to fall in that latter camp, and Bitcoin's going to fall in the former camp. In my view, in the view of blockchain design, you want the blockchain to be sustainable and supported by its own economic activity. Ethereum has a tremendous amount of transaction fees, and the transaction fees are what cause Ethereum's monetary policy to ultimately be deflationary, because 80% to 85% of all transaction fees are, and that creates a deflationary effect to counter the issuance from the block subsidies to validators. Bitcoin, in theory, after 2140, after a lot of halvenings, will have an inflation rate close to zero. But you still need something to pay miners to incentivize them to secure the blockchain. When that goes away, the question is, what will incentivize miners to continue spending all the money on electricity to secure the blockchain? And that question has been hand waved away a lot of times, saying that it's in 2140, we'll figure it out, or that transaction fees on Bitcoin will be high enough to secure miners. I would argue that if the whole point of Bitcoin is to hodl it and to keep it as in a vault as a form of digital gold, transaction fees are never going to really be higher. And we've seen that over time. If Bitcoin transaction fees are a fraction of what Ethereum's transaction fees are. So there's a structural issue long term. I think maybe it'll get kicked, the can will get kicked down the road, but Bitcoin can't have a fixed supply cap and low transaction fees and no real utility other than hodling for the long term, unless there's some change to the protocol. So we'll see what happens there as well. But Ethereum is tackling that up front and has economic sustainability from its transaction fees, from its economy, from all the applications that are built on top of it that we haven't yet seen in Bitcoin. Again, I welcome competition. Maybe we'll have a robust layer 2 ecosystem on top of Bitcoin. Maybe we'll have a lot more smart contracts and functionality, but so far we haven't seen it yet, and Ethereum is taking that place. So